You're listening to Black Country Extra.
Attention, all Folketeers. Welcome to Folk and Beyond! With me, your host, Derry Jones. I'll be having a special guest in the studio every month, featuring 5+1 faves, live performances from the Swinging Cat, and last but by no means least, Busby's going to be asking,
what's going on at the Woodman Des?
Yes, snippets from our very own Woodman Virtual Folk Club.
And that's one of my very, very favourite tracks. That's Jig a Jig. 3 jigs, all in one exceptional tune. Good evening and welcome to the show. My name's Derry Jones, and my guest for this month is the one and only Mr. Mick Harrington.
Evening, Derry.
How are you, mate?
Very well, thank you.
To those who come to the Woodman Folk Club, you will know all about Mick's past history. And but those of you who don't, it was Mick Harrington's fault that it was Mick Harrington that founded the Woodman Folk Club back in 1971. Now, that's a very long time ago, and indeed it's our 50th birthday this year. But unfortunately, we'll be celebrating next year rather than with all the COVID rules that are going on. Anyway, hello, Michael.
Hello
again.
Yeah.
Yes. What was it that? How did the Woodman Folk Club come to be into being, I should say?
I suppose I'd come from South Wales in '65 to do teacher training. Met a couple of guys at college, and we all had the same sort of intention of forming a group if possible. I'd played with another guy back in Ebervale before coming to college, and just had this fiddling around a few chords on the guitar.
Yeah.
And we had the same intention, really. It was all the go, really, playing groups. We'd heard the Spinners and the Corries and the Dubliners and people like that. So we all wanted to play together. So that was it. So then we played for our duration of college with a modicum of success. We had quite a lot of gigs around other colleges and other clubs. And then we started teaching in '68. John and I, there were only two of us left by that time. The other two had gone home. And we just felt a bit after a year, we could do something else. And we had this idea. By this time, I was married. Kate and I were living in Kingswinford, and so we were selfishly looking for somewhere fairly close to home. And we looked at lots of pubs in Kingswinford, quite a few.
Yeah.
And then alighted on the Woodman, which actually had a disco on a Friday night, so we had to wait for them to be cleared out. It was cleared out because they had a massive fight one night, and the landlord chucked them out and got back to us. And said, you asked about running a folk club, so there we are. So that's what we did. So we started. And John didn't play an instrument, and I was sort of fumbling around on the guitar. So we felt the need to have another musician. Just completely by chance, my brother was living in Birmingham. He was a student in Birmingham by now. And there was a guy sharing a flat with him, amongst many, many others, called Pete Warhurst, who was known as Pete the Pianist. Now you have to be careful how you say that.
You do, yes.
And but Pete was a music teacher, but also quite a versatile. I know he played the guitar as well as the piano. So anyway, we enlisted Pete. He was quite keen on the idea, and that was it. And then he gradually, over the next couple of years, started playing the whistle and one or two other piano, accordion, mandolin, and then 18 months later. Autumn '72, Andy Reid just appeared on the scene. He came to do a floor spot. He just arrived in the area, and he joined us very shortly after. We just gelled straight away because he played lots of instruments. So I sort of thought, it'd be a good addition, and we got on very well together. So that was it. So for 7 or 8 years, we were a quartet. Then in '78, John decided he'd had enough. He was just a bit low, I think, at the time, and so he left. So we then continued as a trio for another, however long was 20 years, I suppose. 20 years, about 20 years.
And this, of course, is the Puritans we're talking about.
The Puritans, we were called. Nobody can remember why we were called the Puritans. Somebody at college said, "Oh, you ought to be called the Puritans," and we couldn't think of another name. There was a group called the College Folk Group. And we
that's
thought,
original,
they'd pinched the originality there. So, but there were others, So I got no idea. I think I know who the bloke was, but I can't remember why or whatever. But anyway,
it must have been referring to your pure and light.
Probably yes. Probably
of course.
We were serious academics. We never went out for a drink. Never had anything to do with anything social at all. So,
excuse me.
Probably our purity of life.
I'm allergic to lies, by the way. That's why I start coughing.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah. Well, you'd better watch it then.
Anyway, your first 5 tracks, well, I should say 5 plus 1 faves,
right?
To quote the thing, is The Rocky Road to Dublin by the Dubliners.
Yeah.
And
that was,
why this track?
Back in Wales, we were in the 6th form, and there were 2 or 3 guys who sort of said, "Have you seen?" What was the Hootenanny, the programme was called on the telly?
Oh, yes.
First time we'd ever seen anything like this. I remember seeing the Corrie Folk Trio and Paddy Bell and thinking, that's nice. And then the Spinners, and there was a woman called Nadia Cattouse.
Wow.
A black lady who had a little fella in the background playing a guitar, a chap called Martin Carty. He just accompanied her. But then the Dubliners appeared, and they blew your head off because they were completely different. You know, these 4 blokes at the time. But the banjo sound, this tenor banjo, and then Luke Kelly's voice.
Very distinctive voice.
The two things together, and that was it really, an awakening. So that's why, Rocky Road to Dublin.
Well, you've just announced the title. It's Rocky Road to Dublin by the Dubliners.
Well, in the merry month of May, now from me home I started, left the girls and two, and nearly broken hearted, saluted father dear, kissed me darling mother, drank a pint of beer, me grief and tears to smothered enough to reap the corn and leaf, for I was born, God a stout McLeod, the banished ghost, and goblins a brand new pair of brogues to rot the love of the bogs and frighten all the dogs on the rocky road. It's a double of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to here and turn her down the rocky road, and all the ways to double a McFallaldy-da. In Mullingar that night I rested them so weary, started by daylight next morning late, and there he took a drop of the pure to keep me heart and drink, and that's the paddy's cure. When there is up for drinking they hear the lassie smile, laughing all the while at me curious style to touch your heart above, and he asked me was I hired and wages I required till I was almost tired of the rocky road to double and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the way to double and McFallaldy-da. In Dublin next arrived I thought it such a pity to be so still in the pride of view of that city. Then I took a stroll all among the quality on the lip of stowel in a neat locality. Something crossed me mind when I looked behind. No wonder could I find upon me stick a warren inquiring after the rogue. Said me Conneth brogue, it wasn't much in vogue on the rocky road to double and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hunt the hare and turn them down the rocky road, and all the ways to double and McFallaldy-da. From there I got away, me spirits never failing, landed on the quay just as the ship was sailing. Captain at me road said that down him hardy when I jumped aboard a cab and flew for paddy. Down among the pigs, did some hearty rigs and paid some hearty jigs. The water round me bubbling when I fully had, I wished myself was dead or better far instead. On the rocky road to double and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Up the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the ways to double and McFallaldy-da. The boys of Liverpool, when we safely landed, called myself the fool. I could no longer stand it, blood began to boil. Where I was news and poured all there in Zyle. They began abusing Harami, so says I'm a shillelagh, I'll apply. Galway boys were by, and so I was a howling with the lower hooray, the joy and the affray. Quickly clear the way for the rocky road to double and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the ways to double and McFallaldy-da. Quickly clear the way for the rocky road to double and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hunt the hare and turn her down the rocky road, and all the ways to double and McFallaldy-da.
Oh, that ended rather quickly. I think they must have heard last orders being called at the bar.
Quite likely, yeah.
Just run off the stage.
Quite
there.
likely.
That was the Rocky Road to Dublin by the very famous Dubliners. And now your next track, It Ain't Me, Babe. I wonder who that's by then.
Well, well, sort of simultaneously with the sort of folk revival in Britain, the sort of traditional music, we started hearing these things from America. And Bob Dylan was sort of quite an unusual voice, but was writing his own songs, which was unusual. You'd had Pete Seeger, the Weavers, but they sang pretty much traditional stuff, interspersed with songs that they'd written, but they weren't sort of perhaps that significant at the time. But Dylan was completely revolutionary, you know. And then you heard other people like Joan Baez, Peter, Paul and Mary sing them. But when I came to live in Dudley, I mean, I was obviously a serious student, as you can imagine. Anybody who knows me would verify that.
Of course.
But I realised how easy it was to get to Birmingham. And I soon realised there were folk clubs. I mean, there were loads of folk clubs in the Black Country, loads and loads. But there were also these concerts happening in Birmingham. And in the first year, 2 years, I saw the Corrie Folk Trio, the Spinners, Peter, Paul and Mary, Tom Paxton.
There you go.
But the one that was sort of the standout one was Bob Dylan, because this was the famous tour of '66. And he played, it was at a cinema. It wasn't at Town Hall or of course it was years ahead of the Symphony Hall, but it wasn't at the Town Hall, it was at the cinema. And I went in with a couple of guys from Dudley, on the bus of course, and we were expecting to see Bob Dylan sing, Times They Are A-Changin', etc., Blowing in the Wind.
His greatest hits, basically.
Greatest hits. And that's what he did in the first half. So first half he came on with his mouth organ and what Andy called the scaffolding, and played the guitar, and that's what it was, acoustic, unadulterated, just Bob Dylan. And then second half, completely unannounced. The curtains went across, and then we could hear this sort of sounds of PA and drums and microphone. We thought, what on earth's happening there? Well, we thought, my immediate instinct was, there were no programs in those days. You didn't know what was.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's a support band, which was not unusual.
No.
And anyway, the curtains opened, and there was this electric band, and Dylan with a Stratocaster strapped on, singing It Ain't Me, Babe, a completely different version. I mean, it was a rock and roll version of It Ain't Me, Babe. For the next hour or so, people were booing, moving out, shouting.
Oh dear.
The seats were being tipped up. But I was, because I'd been interested in rock and roll before this period, it didn't particularly bother me. And I suppose about, I don't know what percentage it was, probably somebody's got it on record, probably a third of the audience, quarter or a third left, and he just carried on. Didn't say a word. I know there was the famous Judas in Manchester, which was, it was a bit later, on the same tour. There wasn't anything like that in Birmingham, but there was a lot of, a lot of disenchanted folks, I suppose.
Oh,
we stuck it out, and I enjoyed it, and I can remember Maggie's Farm blowing us away, and we just accepted it and moved on, and went back to tell everybody.
Well, we'll have a listen to. I think this is the acoustic version.
Yeah, the original, unadulterated.
We don't want to upset anybody here.
No.
So this is "It Ain't Me, Babe" by the great Bob Dylan. Great Bob Dylan track there. "It Ain't Me, Babe," and nobody walked out. I think, Mick, nobody walked out on that one.
No. The acoustic set went.
It went well.
Went normally.
Now your next one is "Kennedy I.O." by Nick Jones.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, Nick was one of several traditional singers I could have chosen. It's just the reason. I suppose one of the reasons I chose is nostalgic, because it was Nick had a terrible road accident which took him off the scene.
Yeah.
Even though he did return in more recent years, I understand. He wasn't the figure he was, but he came to the Woodman quite a few times in the early sort of decade of the club, and he was immensely popular. He was probably the first traditional singer to have no airs and graces, and he made no pretense of being an entertainer.
Yeah.
He just did it as he was. He was a great guitar player. He'd played in a group before going solo, where he was pretty much the lead guitar.
Oh.
On one night, the one memorable occasion, he came, and at the time the Melody Maker had a folk page, can you believe? And they had the best of whatever year it was, mid-70s. Best male artist, best male singer, best male guitarist, female singer, group, etc. And for the first time, Nick Jones pipped Martin Carthy to that title, and it coincided with him coming to the Woodman.
Oh, very
so that was a great introduction.
Night.
I could amend the posters,
Yeah.
But he was very modest, and he didn't want to. And he said something very funny that resonated. He said, I'm going to suggest that they introduce a new category for next year, and that's best heckler. And he said the Woodman will win without any doubt. There's the best heckling club in the country, which I thought was a great compliment.
This is to this day another attribute to the club.
Absolutely, yeah.
In fact, if you go to the Woodman website, I think Brynner, who runs is our webmaster.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Has put the quotes and heckles
quotes
up
and
there.
Heckles over the years. Yes.
They have gone into folk legend. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and still live as ever. Yeah. Right. So here we go. Then the next track is "Kennedy I.O." by Nick Jones.
fell in love with a sailor boy, and it's true that she loved him well. For to go off to sea with him, like she did not know how, she longed to see that seaport town called Canady, I-O. So she bargained with a young sailor boy, it's all for a piece of gold. Straightway then he led her all down into the hold, saying, I'll dress you up in sailor's clothes, your jacket shall be blue. You'll see that seaport town called Canady, I-O. Now when the other sailors heard the news, well, they fell into a rage, and with all the whole ship's company, they were willing to engage, saying, we'll tie her hands and feet, me boys, overboard we'll throw her, and she'll never see that seaport town called Canady, I-O. Now when the captain he's heard the news, well, he too fell in a rage, and with all of his whole ship's company, he was willing to engage, saying she'll stay all in sailor's clothes, her collar shall be blue. She'll see that seaport town called Canady, I-O. Now when they came down to Canada, scarcely above half a year, she's married this bold captain who called her his dear. She's dressed in silks and satins now, and she cuts a gallant show. She's the finest of the ladies down in Canady, I-O. Come all ye fair and tender girls, wheresoever you may be, I'd have you to follow your own true love when he goes out on the sea. For if the sailors prove false to you, well, the captain he might prove true. You see the honour that I have gained by the wearing of the blue.
Cannadio by Nick Jones. There we are. Not that last bit, that was a jingle. But the next one is a rather unusual one. It's Sauvé, is it called?
Yeah, Sauvé, yeah.
Yeah, and who's this by?
This is Martin Carthy and Dave Swarbrick. Now, Carthy was the top solo singer guitarist for many, many years. And he's still around, and God bless him, he's still alive and kicking.
Yeah, he is.
Poor old Dave Swarbrick isn't with us any longer.
No.
Dave Swarbrick had played the fiddle. I first saw him. He was from the Midlands, from Coventry, but he played in Birmingham for a long time. Played with the Ian Campbell Folk Group. He'd left them just before I came to the Midlands, and he then later, of course, played in various bands. Fairport Convention being probably the most famous of those.
I would have thought so. Yes.
And went on to play in various other combinations. But he recorded with Carthy, and it became quite a big sort of trend. They did intermittently then over the years play together a series of gigs, and luckily many years later we got them at the Woodman on one of their many reunion tours. They didn't do quite as many as Frank Sinatra, but they did several reunion tours, and so that was a great night. And in fact Ian Campbell, who was a friend of both of them, came to the Woodman that night, and whoever it was on the door wouldn't let him in because he didn't have a ticket.
I don't blame them.
That was a slight embarrassment, but he got over it, and then once he appeared, I persuaded him to, and he did a couple of songs as well, a couple of unaccompanied songs, and so that was rather a nice evening. So yeah, Martin Carthy with I mean, I'm a great fan of Carthy as a singer guitarist, and I know lots of Woodmanites were fans, but when playing with Swarbrick as well, it was a little bit special in my view.
Yeah, well, I saw them at Bromyard Folk Festival many years ago.
Yeah.
They were a part of a reunion tour then, I think it was.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, here's the track. It's called Sauvé, and I believe it's instrumental, isn't it? Or is it not?
No, there's a vocal with an instrumental break.
A bit of both.
From memory. Yeah.
A bit of both from Swarby and Martin Carthy. Here we go.
Sauvé, all on a day she dressed herself in man's array, with a sword and pistol all by her side, to meet a true love away did ride. As she was riding over the plain, she met a true love and bid him stand. Your gold and silver, kind sir, she said, or else this moment your life will have. And when she'd robbed him of his store, she said, kind sir, there is one thing more, a golden ring which I know you have. Deliver it to your sweet life to save. Oh, that golden ring, a token is, my life I'll lose, the ring I'll save. Being tender-hearted just like a dove, she rode away from her true love. Next morning in the garden green, just like true love years they were seen, he spied his watch hanging by her clothes, which made him blush like any rose. Oh, what makes you blush at so silly a thing? I thought to have had your golden ring, 'twas I that robbed you all on the plain. So here's your watch and your gold again. Oh, I did intend, and it was to know if that you were me true love or no. So now I have a contented mind, my heart and all, my dear, is thine, me true love or no. So now I have a contented mind, my heart and all, my dear, is thine.
That was Sauvé there by Carthy and Swarbrick. That was rather a lively track, actually, wasn't it? I was expecting to be a bit more dour than that, but it was very, very clever. That was
the guitar and fiddle playing, lovely.
Quite rocked along.
Yep.
Anyway, you're back in Durham Jail is your next one.
Yeah.
You're back in Durham jail again, mate.
One of the great things about running the club and being involved in the club is the great people you met, the lovely people, you know. Carthy, Swarbrick, Nick Jones, all those people that have come before.
Yeah.
And Jez Lowe epitomised those because he played as a soloist, he played with Bev Sanders, he played with various bands. He also played with Dab Hand, which
right.
they were a bit special. Largely instrumental with Tom McConville and Tom Napper originally. But Jez came in all guises, and he was always popular. And I mean, he contributed this year, didn't he, to the anniversary recording that you did?
He certainly did. Very kindly did.
He's
a
great guy. Yeah. So you know, this is one of his early songs, and it's just a nice, lively, you know, reminiscence of his life in the Northeast. So
yeah, I first saw Jez. I've seen him many times since, of course, and we've had him at the Woodman millions of times. But I actually first saw Jez at another folk club, indeed called the Woodman.
Right.
There were two at one point.
My goodness.
And this Woodman was in Clent.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
I know the pub, yeah.
Yeah, it's now called the French Hen, I think, or
Yeah,
something like that.
I know what you mean, yeah.
And I saw him there, and he did this track there, Durham Jail. And always famous for his stripy T-shirts, of course.
That's right, yeah.
Anyway, here we are, stripy T-shirt in hand, back in Durham Jail, Jez Lowe.
Poor man, as honest as they come. I never was a thief until they caught me. And the judge, he said, he swore me hands were red. No matter how I played, he found me guilty. There was no bail off to Derry jail. I went, no, nothing now could save me. Calamities, they always come in threes, and that's how many months it was they gave me. And no, never in the livelong day you'll not find me back in Durham jail. No, never in the livelong day you'll not find me back in Durham jail. 'Twas a grey day when first I went astray. The devil take the man that came to tempt me. 'Cause in no time me life was one a crime, and now you see the trouble that it's gotten me. Well, there's four bare walls at which to stare. Me board and me lodgings all are paid for. You can't see the turning of the key. To hear the turning back is all you wait for. And no, never in the livelong day you'll not find me back in Durham jail. No, never in the livelong day you'll not find me back in Durham jail. Oh, but sad to say, here I am to stay, with only iron bars around to lean on. I get a cold bath to dampen down me wrath, though it's barely just a month ago I had one. God knows I need a suit of clothes. You think they could have found the one to fit me? Me boots would be fine if they were both a 9. I'm walking like a fall of stones has hit me. And no, never in the livelong day you'll not find me back in Durham jail. No, never in the livelong day you'll not find me back in Durham jail. Mother's heart to break to see me in a state of such repentance. I'm glad she's not around to see, and I'll be out before she finishes the sentence. The sun will shine, I'll leave it all behind, knowing I've done me time and done me duty. And out
past of the gates on the narrow and the straight, to the place where they buried all the booty. And no, never in the livelong day, you'll not find me back in Durham jail. Oh no, never in the livelong day, you'll not find me back in Durham jail.
And there we have it, back in Durham jail for yet another time. And that by the great Jeslow, of course. And another great singer-songwriter coming up. Your next track is called Unicorns by Bill Caddick.
Yeah,
Could
Bill.
you tell us about Bill?
Well,
eh?
dear old Bill, of course, was from the Black Country, born in Cosley.
Certainly was, yeah.
Hurst Hill. And was very much part of the scene. By the time we started the club, Bill was already prominent on the scene.
Yeah.
Although he was still working full-time in those days, as we all had to. But Bill, we booked Bill in the fairly early days, and we got a letter. I actually had a letter signed Traddy of Dudley, complaining about booking non-folk artists.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and I was amused and a
Yeah.
little bit upset by this, because I thought, well, Bill Caddick is, even though he writes his own songs, it's from the tradition.
Yes.
And he did, when I first saw him, he did sing some traditional songs.
Yeah.
So this sort of, from there on, I read out the letter, because of course we didn't know who it was, and we never found out for certain who it was.
Oh.
As the time went on, we thought we knew who it was, but we're not certain. But we made light of it, and I did actually write a little ditty about it, but that's been lost in the mists of time.
Oh, what a shame.
Well, yeah. No, I think it's probably best left. And I am a traddy singer, and I sing a traddy song. I'll have to look that up and relearn it. Well,
Yes, you're going to bring that one out.
Perhaps. But anyway, Bill, so Bill was very much part of the scene, as you know, all the way through his life. And played with, he formed a group with Taffy Thomas and Pete and Chris Cole called Magic Lantern.
All right.
They were completely unique.
Yeah.
And the track that I've chosen makes reference to that. The first verse about going north to sing and play. And they had a sort of a very successful short period, but keeping a band on the road, of course, was very expensive, and eventually. And I think the clash of personalities might have had something to do with it. But anyway, dear old Bill.
Well, that's rock and roll for you, isn't it?
That's rock and roll, yeah. So Bill with a much recorded song, Unicorns, one of his many, I mean, again, we could have chosen one of 30 or 40 songs, I suppose, but...
it's been covered by some great artists.
Yeah,
and, you know,
June Tabor almost had a hit with it.
She did, yes. And a folk hit, that's a rarity these days.
Yeah, very unusual.
It used to happen. Anyway, the track's called Unicorns, and this has got sort of undertones of ecological song to me.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so, a man way ahead of his time, sadly no longer with us.
Yeah.
Unicorns by the late, great Mr. Bill Caddick.
We were travelling north to sing and play for friends that we'd never met. Been working hard and didn't speak, and the sky was grey and threatened wet. And I dreamed that I saw unicorns, I dreamed I saw them wild and white, and their sudden beauty lit the world like a star will light a winter's night. Pure as love with mains of milk, they danced and pranced and cried aloud. Bright as rainbows round the stars, their eyes were soft and sad and proud. And I wept for the wild and dirty world to which this beauty now was lost, and cursed the hungry mind of man that feeds the future at such cost. My head was bowed, my eyes were closed, when in my ears their voices rang, and these few words lodged deep inside, and in my very soul they sang. We never went away, you always knew that we were near. Remember how to look for us, you'll see we were always here. I raised my eyes to seek them out, but the world was empty all around. Rain came tumbling from the sky to drown all dreams upon the ground. And when they asked me why I wept like one who for his dead love mourns, the only answer I could give, I dreamed that there were unicorns. We never went away, you always knew that we were near. Remember how to look for us, you'll see we were always here. We never went away, you always knew that we were near. Remember how to look for us, you'll see we were always here. You'll see we were always here. Always here.
That was a brilliant choice, Mick, wasn't it, eh?
Lovely.
Yeah, it was a cracking track.
That's very just old string guitar. Yeah.
Yes. It almost sounded like a bouzouki almost.
Yeah,
didn't it?
that's right. Yeah.
But anyway, I think my mate Busby's got something to say.
What's going on at the Woodman Des? What's going on at the Woodman Des?
Well, Busby, it's the Fragile Hearts with Till the Hard Times Are Gone, and Three Little Birds by Emma Langford. Here we go.
Our first act tonight is Fragile Hearts. They have a beautiful song for you, performed in an atmospheric setting. It's called Till the Hard Times Have Gone. This promises to get the evening off to a great start. Please, let's have a rousing welcome for Fragile Hearts.
These are hard times, we've never been here before. All of this bad luck knocking on our front door. Nothing but rain clouds and the gathering storm. Why don't we turn down the light, put on an old John Prine song? We'll sing along till the hard times are gone. We'll sing along till the hard times are gone. My words are clumsy, they will stumble and fall. Sometimes I wonder maybe it's best to say nothing at all. Oh, but how would I tell you in this hour before dawn? You are the only thing right in a world where everything's wrong. Could you just keep me strong till the hard times are gone? Could you just keep me strong till the hard times are gone? Then there were heroes fighting on the front line, an invisible foe, an unsolvable crime stood on our doorsteps like a neighborly throng, sending out thanks to the ones trying to keep us from harm. Oh, may God keep you strong till the hard times are gone. May God keep you strong till the hard times are gone. And now the marina will lie still for a while, and the moonlight will dance on the narrow boats out along the canal. The woodman is waiting for this world to move on. Don't know when we'll be together again, hope it's not long. Hope it's not long till the hard times are gone. Hope it's not long till the hard times are gone.
What a great song. And I love that last verse, which is dedicated to the woodman. Let's hear it once again, please, for Fragile Hearts. Our next act is Emma Langford. She's performed at the Woodman a couple of times, and it's really nice to see her here tonight at the virtual Woodman. Please put your hands together for Emma, who is performing Bob Marley's song, Three Little Birds.
Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be alright. Say don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little
A lovely song and a great performance. Let's hear it again, please, for Emma.
Black Country Extra. Black Country Extra.
You're listening to Black Country Extra.
There you go. That was tunes. I've got tunes 1982 written down here, mate.
Yeah.
Was that about right?
Yeah, about right. I think they were tunes. Yeah, the date is certainly right because I saw it on the box. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that we enjoyed when Andy joined was the fact that he came from a tradition of singing and playing,
Yeah.
and he was also from a dance tradition which we had no experience of.
Right.
So he lived in London, had grown up playing music, hearing music, and was very, very versatile. I mean, he played the melodeon, which you heard him play there, but he played the concertina,
Yeah.
the mouth organ, the guitar. But he didn't take himself too seriously.
Pays not to, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, well, I think so. We did a lot of tunes for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes it was a fill-in. Sometimes, I mean, we did some. Oh, we had some unfortunate bookings. We did a lot of gigs. You know, we played a lot
Yeah.
around. We at one stage in the mid-70s, we were doing 2 bookings a week apart from the Woodman on average. You know.
Yeah. Let me just, for our listeners, this is the Puritans we're talking
This
about.
is the Puritans, yeah. I mean, when John was with us, when there were 4 of us, we did a lot of things. We did summer fairs and all sorts of things.
Oh, right.
And we folk clubs as well. But then when Andy was with us, it meant that we had a bit more versatility, and we played at some events that were where you needed fillers. I remember a famous local authority, which shall remain nameless, but not very far from here, and they had an idea of having a beer festival, which they still have. But the original beer festival...
Oh, I think I know the beer festival you're talking about.
Yeah, the original beer festival was in Horsley Fields, outdoor in Dudley. Oh, Dudley, I mentioned it. It's all right, we
mentioned the location.
We got lawyers, yeah. So anyway...
other locations are
other locations aren't available. But anyway, we played there. I remember playing there the first time. It was all agreed, you know, they were going to provide PA. We turned up, no PA. So we were on the back of an Express and Star wagon, with people getting slowly slaughtered, and we were sort of expected to entertain them. And that was the sort of event where tunes became very, very useful, because you just needed a break, basically. You needed a filler while people got their next drink in and the next drink in. So, yeah, we played that. And we did actually, for a little while, have an evening of dance at the Woodman, can you believe? Instead of a singers' night, we had a barn dance, which became too popular, too many people. We thought, well, we get 30, 40 people, we'll have a dance, and that'll be great. And we had too many people coming, so we had to knock that on the head after a while. But
too
anyway,
many people, oh wow.
Pardon?
What? Too many people? What, you mean there's not enough room to dance?
Not enough room to dance, yeah.
Oh,
that's
I
right,
see.
yeah. So we tried it with song spots and then dancing, song spot, do a dance, two dance or whatever. But it became too crowded, so we had to, I think it lasted about 12 months.
That's the popularity of, they call them Kayleys nowadays, don't
yeah,
they?
That's right, yeah.
By the way, if you hear rattling in the background, I'm passing my mate Mick some green and white tablets. They're nothing to do with external activities.
No.
They're actually peppermints. So because we're coughing like good uns over here.
Very nice too. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there we are. Then that was Tunes, 1982.
Yeah, I'll try and. One of them was Cock of the North, and I think the other one was Cumberland Square 8, something like that. Anyway, they're traditional, so you won't get done for copyright.
I used to have a Cumberland Square 8. It was a bugger to start Kickstarter. Tell you. Anyway.
Yeah, and the first one, Cock of the North, is no comment.
No comment. No, we won't comment about that. Anyway, the next one is called, dare I say it, The German Clockwinder.
Yeah, this was a Black Country song from Albert Shaw. And Albert was a regular at the club. He used to come, a lovely chap. I mean, he was the age I am now when we started the club. So this old fella used to come along, never ever asked to sing.
No.
He used to come along, pay his way, often with his one of his sons, but occasionally with two or three of his sons. And they would come, give him a night's drinking to bring Albert to the Woodman. And lovely fella.
Yeah.
And we had to ask him to sing. He'd never come along and say, can I sing tonight? He'd never, ever ask. Sat in the corner by us. And yeah, so we pinched, with his permission.
Yeah.
He was very pleased and flattered. We took some of his songs. Amazingly, I mean, when you think about it, we were from, John was from London, Rob was from Essex, Andy from London, Pete from Lancashire, me from South Wales. There was a tremendous demand for Black Country evenings, Black Country night out.
Yes.
There was a big one at the Robin Hood that Ray Hingley ran. But then people used to say, can you do a Black Country night? Well, it seemed a bit of a fraud. However, the money was good. So we got an act together. Well, sort of an act. So we were looking for songs, and Albert was a great store of songs. We sang several of his songs. This one, Miss Tittletoby, the Benefit Concert. Quite a few of them were from the tradition. Some of them he had no idea where he got them from.
Is this the this is ringing bells now? Is this the guy I did a CD of his
That's
recordings?
right. Yeah.
Oh,
luckily,
I know what you're
he did
talking
he did a tape in the early 70s for Mike Billington, who was another great bloke on the scene, a lovely chap who ran concerts, ran an agency for a while. And he was a big friend of Bill Caddick's. And he played in a trio with Brian Clift and John Rose, the fiddle player.
Oh, yeah.
So Mike was a lovely bloke, and he persuaded Albert to record it. I think it was at Albert's house in Quarrybank. And he just recorded this tape of talking about his life and his music. And of course, he much treasured this cassette recording. Mike did me a copy of it, which again is very, very treasured. And the strange thing is now that 50 years on, I had a phone call from Taffy Thomas early part of this year asking if there was a recording. And he'd been put onto this by John Kirkpatrick, who's still around and sings in Shropshire.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
yes.
and John thought he remembered me telling him there was a recording, and he was right. I promised John a recording, which I subsequently sent to him this year. And he acknowledged it. He and Taffy acknowledged these recordings. What'll ever happen to them, I don't know. I know that Mike Billington tried to get one of the labels to. They did show an interest in the 70s and 80s, but nothing ever came of it, which I think is a shame because some of the things they did release, some of the traditional singers, well, fine, but I think Albert was every bit as good as most of them and better than many, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I think we should at one point do a segment or at least a whole show about the history of folk music in the Midlands.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely right.
That might be one for my mate Billy Spakeman to
that's
have a
right.
look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it's. I remember listening to those as I was sort of transferring them onto CD and trying to clean them up a bit.
Cleaning them up technically, you mean? Not
technically, no. I would not alter the lyryrics.
No.
They're gems. I wouldn't do a thing like that. No. I wouldn't play them before 9 o'clock.
No. The Watershed,
Well, I'm never up before 9 o'clock.
No.
Anyway, this is the German Clockwinder, and it's by the very, very famous Puritans.
A German clock mender to England once came. Benjamin Snooker was the old German's name. Round the town his wares to sell, clocks to mend, he would ring on his bell with his tooralai, 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 tooralai. Clocks to mend, he would ring on his bell with his tooralai, tooralai, tooralai. Now this German was handsome, to the ladies' delight. He would often invited to put their clocks right. Some was too fast and some was too slow. 9 out of 10 he would make them all go with his tooralai, 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 tooralai. 9 out of 10 he would make them all go with his tooralai. With a lady in Finsbury Square who told him her clock was in need of repair, invited him round, and to her great delight, in less than 2 minutes he'd put her clock right with his tooralai, 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 tooralai. In less than 2 minutes he'd put her clock right, but his tooralai, tooralai, tooralai. But while he was there, taking great stock, well, at the door then there came a great knock. In walked her husband, and great was his shock to see the old German winding up his wife's clock with his tooralai, 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 tooralai. To see the old German winding up his wife's clock with his tooralai, tooralai, tooralai. Now this husband says, wifey, my dear Mary Ann, why do you always invite in this man? Inviting him home and leave me on the shelf. If your clock wants winding, I'll do it myself with it. Tooralai, 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 tooralai. If your clock wants winding, I'll do it myself with his tooralai, tooralai. So come all you young fellows, and a warning by me, if this German clock mender you chance for to see, grab hold of your lassie as firm as a rock, or else he'll be coming and winding her clock with his tooralai, 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 or else he'll be coming and winding her clock with his tooralai.
Yes, the famous German clockwinder. A slight touch of innuendo there, I do believe.
Just a fraction. I
Just
know
a
that was one of Bryn's always enjoyed that one. That was, in fact, I think he may even have requested it once.
I think he may have done.
But he's got over that now, yes.
Yeah. I mean, that was, of course, the Puritans' version of that song. But one of our mates and a future guest on the show, Will Morgan, actually does a version of that as well.
Ah, yeah. Well, he specialises in very rude songs, Will.
Well, but he doesn't actually. He just lets you put the rude bits in your mind. You know what I mean?
Very subtle performer.
This is the art of the performer, yes. But but nevertheless, I mean, if the innuendo's there, let's do it, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the next one we've got is another live Puritan live at the Woodman, and it's a Puritan track called "Low Down in the Broom." Do you remember this one?
Yeah, this was from a book actually, a song collection, and Pete the pianist.
You have to be careful how to say.
Very, very careful. Got the wrong teeth in, you get into trouble. Pete sort of found this tune and said, "Oh, this is a nice little tune." Played it, and so I learnt the words. And years on, then people claimed that they'd heard a traditional singer sing it,
oh, right.
Which may or may not be the case, but we got it from a book, no question. I then learnt the song. What I loved about it, and it comes out clear if you're going to ignore the vocal, Pete plays the whistle and Andy plays the concertina.
Yeah.
And that really is a lovely, lovely sound. I think they make a lovely sound playing sort of
It is a classic
harmonies.
sound, really, isn't it?
It's lovely. And that was a great thing when they were such good players, and they were completely opposite. Andy would rehearse everything thoroughly and wouldn't perform anything without rehearsing. Pete loved busking. He's such a talented musician. Not that Andy's not a talented musician, but Pete would, throw him a song and he'd get it straight away.
Don't you just hate people like that?
It was a bit annoying at times because he wouldn't rehearse anything.
Oh, I see.
So, we'd sort of spend, we'd decide on a song. We would then go away and rehearse it, practice it. Pete would we'd say, "We're going to do so-and-so, Pete." And he'd say, "Oh, okay, yeah." And then he'd be fumbling about for the right key, and a little bit frustrating, but, that was part of his magic.
Yeah, well, I mean, if that's the way you work, that's the way you work.
That's the way you work,
It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
But you say you got it from a book. I wonder if somebody else sort of got it from a similar book.
Could very well be. I'm sure they sold more than one copy.
Yeah.
It was the English Folk Dance and Song Society, also known as English Folk. And there's
that's easy for you to say.
There's another version. A lovely couple from Birmingham, Bill and Barbara Kinsman, who were dance experts. We'd often get bookings through them. Barbara would ring and say, "We're doing a thing in Solihull or Sutton Coldfield or Coventry or whatever, and they want somebody to do some song spots. Would the Puritans like to come and play?" And we just went along. So we had quite a lot of gigs. We didn't call them gigs, bookings, engagements, that Barbara and Bill got for us over many, many years. Lovely people, yeah.
So the Puritans were famous around these parts. Or was it infamous? I don't know.
In one year, in the late 80s, we played the last night at 3 clubs. We closed down 3 clubs. Now, they insisted that it wasn't meant to be like that. The club was closing, unfortunately, and they booked us for the last night.
The finale.
But it did sound a little bit, oh, thanks for that. Yeah. When they said, "Well, that's it. We finished now." So we went back.
I've been in a band that used to do that quite regularly. We used to do sessions in pubs, and most of the pubs that we did sessions in are no longer with us.
Yeah, there was one actually near where we live, where a chap we know quite well started a couple of years ago. Started playing medieval what sort of music? Yeah, medieval or very evil music, and in a little combo, and they didn't get a fee.
Yeah.
I think they might have got a pint, and so it was like free background music.
Yeah.
But after a few months, the landlord said, "Would you mind not coming? Because we've noticed with you playing there, we're taking less money than." So that was
what a shame.
Unfortunate, most unfortunate.
What a shame. Anyway, here we go with the track. It's called "Low Down in the Broom," taken from a book, not nicked from another band, and it's by the Puritans.
'Twas on last Easter Monday, the day appointed was, for me to go down in the broom to meet me bonny lass. How sweet and pleasant was the day, I kept her company, and it's low, low down in the broom, me true love went with me. I turned myself all round about to see what I could see, and then I saw me own true love come tripping down to me. I gently took her by the hand and gave her kisses 3, and it's low, low down in the broom, me true love went with me. I took her by the waist so small and gently laid her down. These were the words she said to me as we lay there in the broom. Do what you will to me, young man, 'tis all the same to me, and it's low, low down in the broom, me true love went with me. Me father is a miser, he will not give me gold. Me mother is a scolding dame and does the house control. But I will love me bonny lad until the day I die, and it's low, low down in the brook, me true love went with me. And I kissed her as we parted and homeward then returned. I told her to remember our meeting in the broom, for what was done and what was said was all the same to me, and I'll go down in the broom again and married we will be. Said was all the same to me, and I'll go down in the broom again and married we will be.
There we are, low down in the broom, or anywhere else you choose to be low down in.
Yep.
By the wonderfully famous Puritans. The lead singer of which is sitting right opposite to me now, and that's the wonderful Mr. Mick Harrington.
Yeah, thank you, Derry. Yeah,
you're welcome.
I would like to sort of accentuate on that the play, and Andy on the concertina and Pete on the whistle was a lovely arrangement, which I think was the magic of the song.
Yes, it was a classical arrangement, basically, wasn't it?
Lovely.
Very good. And I'm a bit curious as to this next one. It's got a very strange title, and please correct me if I'm saying it wrong, but I think it's called the Pace Egging Song.
Yeah, a northern tradition, and this was taken pretty much directly from the Watersons. Again, as I said to you earlier, the Traddy of Dudley reference, we didn't take ourselves too seriously, you know. We enjoyed playing and enjoyed performing, and Andy in particular would often make up a shanty. You know, there was a big shanties were very famous, very popular in the 70s. They really went out of favour then. They're back, aren't they now?
They are back now.
The shantyman, the
back with a bang now, aren't they?
Fisherman's Friends, and all the rest of it. We only chewed Fisherman's Friends in the 70s and 80s. But anyway, so Andy would often. And we like doing this sort of thing. We did it a little bit lighter than the Watersons, but it's a tradition. We like doing what Andy called unaccomplished songs.
Unaccomplished songs.
So this is an example.
That's a phrase that's got into the psyche of the Woodman.
Absolutely right. Yeah, lots of unaccomplished singing.
Lots of unaccomplished singings, yeah. And a cappella. That was
a cappella. That's the word. A cappella.
That's the Acapulco singing.
Acapulco a cappella. Yeah, they're very close together on the coast.
What is pace egging now?
No idea. I can't. I did know at the time in the 70s. I'm sure you can look it up. I'm sure there's probably a website now dedicated to it.
There's a challenge for all of our listeners. Yeah. So sit up straight, you, and have a listen to this. Get onto Google and see what pace egging involves.
Yeah.
And we're very curious because we've got eggs. What do we do with the pace bit?
Yeah.
Anyway, pace egging songs by the world-famous Puritans.
Here's 1, 2, 3 jolly lads, all in one mind. We are come a pace egging, and I hope you'll prove kind. And I hope you'll prove kind with your eggs and strong beer. For we'll come no more nigh you until the next year. And the first to come in is Lord Nelson, you'll see, with a bunch of blue ribbons tied round by his knee, and a star on his breast that like silver doth shine. And I hope he remembers it's pace-egging time. Here's 1, 2, 3 jolly lads all in one mind. We're come a pace-egging, and I hope you'll prove kind. And I hope you'll prove kind with your eggs and strong beer. But we'll come no more nigh you until the next year. And the next to come in, it is Lord Collingwood. He fought with Lord Nelson till he shed his blood. And he's come from the sea, old England to view. And he's come a pace-egging with all of his crew. Here's 1, 2, 3 jolly lads all in one mind. We're come a pace-egging, and I hope you'll prove kind. And I hope you'll prove kind with your eggs and strong beer. For we'll come no more nigh you until the next year. And the last to come in is old Tosspot, you'll see. He's a valiant old man, and in every degree. He's a valiant old man, and he wears a pigtail, and all his delight is in supping mulled ale. Here's 1, 2, 3 jolly lads all in one mind. We're come a pace-egging, and I hope you'll prove kind. And I hope you'll prove kind with your eggs and strong beer. For we'll come no more nigh you until the next year. Come, ladies and gentlemen, sit by the fire. Put your hands in your pockets and give us our desire. Put your hands in your pockets and treat us all right. If you give nought, we take nought. Farewell and good night. Here's 1, 2, 3 jolly lads all in one mind. We're come a pace-egging, and I hope you'll prove kind. And I hope you'll prove kind with your eggs and strong beer. For we'll come no more nigh you until the next year.
There we have it, the pace-egging song. I think we had a bit of a clue there, Mick. They said eggs and strong beer.
Yeah, eggs and strong beer.
So, I mean, I wonder if that's where pickled eggs come from.
It could very well be, yeah. The strong beer we can associate with. And the eggs, of course, you know. Can't have a nerve eggs, can you?
No, that's
as they
right.
say.
And nerve eggs. That was a bit of Black Country French there, wasn't it?
Absolutely right, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I love Black Country French. There we are. In the cleanest possible way,
absolutely.
of course. Yes, and moving swiftly on. That's the pace-egging song. As I said, Google it. See what pace-egging is. We think it's just drinking lots of beer and eating lots of eggs, basically, and being rather ill the next morning, I would have thought.
Yeah, it's certainly got traditional links. I think it's, I may be wrong. I think it's from the north of England, but I mean, we probably did 10 minutes introduction when we sang it in the 70s and 80s. But
explaining the whole meaning.
Yeah. And the thing is, Andy's introduction says Andy sang the lead on that.
Oh, right.
Andy's introductions were often completely load of garb. I nearly said a rude word then.
Did you?
But so Andy would make up stories. Well, we were all renowned for that, but
Yeah.
Andy in particular would make out that this was about something completely nonsense, which led to all sorts of occasional letters of complaint.
I think Trad from Dudley might have been right.
Traddy of Dudley would have been very upset. I'm sure that Pace-Egging song was one of many that we had to wind him up, because when we thought we identified him, we would deliberately sing non-traditional songs, or we would sing them in a non-traditional way.
Yeah.
Traditional songs, but in a rather lighter way.
Yeah, so
we upset him even more.
Make it more frivolous. So
Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
excellent! I love it. And we still do that now at the Woodman, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I have to say we are more of a, excuse me, more of a contemporary club now, I think.
Yeah.
Well, then we do welcome traditionalists and traditional artists every now and then as well, for a nice change. Now the next one is simply entitled Lloyd George.
Yeah, this is Pete. This is Pete from Lancashire singing. And I'm pretty sure from memory, he got this from a chap called Harry Boardman, who was a Lancashire traditional singer who played at the Woodman in the early days.
Right.
So Pete, for obvious reasons, sang some songs from the north of England. Lots of them. I mean, there were quite a few singers from that neck of the woods who came to the club. Mike Harding came. Gary and Vera.
not heard of
Pat
those.
Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely, lovely lady, Pat Ryan, and her husband, Ken. So, yeah, quite a few. what are they called? Ruth from
Ruth
Risky
Kent.
Business. Risky
Yeah.
Business, yeah. So there are quite a lot of performers from that neck of the woods. But Pete, simply for when we played at other clubs or at other venues, we obviously, for obvious reason, it was good to have material from elsewhere. Obviously, he wouldn't have done that on a Black Country night.
No.
But if it was a night, just a night of music, we'd try to do as much different stuff as we could.
Well, that northern tradition is still going strong
Absolutely,
today, isn't
yeah,
it? You
absolutely, yeah,
There's
yeah.
a wealth of folk
Yeah,
singers
that's right.
and players from up north.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's not grim at all, I have to say. It's full of wonderful talent. Lloyd George, now, the man himself, if you're interested, this is. We actually went to a museum
Yeah.
when we were on holiday in Wales with our friends. We went to the Lloyd George Museum. Now, look it up on another Google challenge for you. Look it up on Google, and it's the Lloyd George Museum, and I'm going to give you where it is now. It's Llanstymdwy in Criceth.
Yeah.
Have I said that right, mate?
Yeah, it's just outside Cricket, yeah.
Yeah, right. So I actually went there thinking, oh, well, okay, but Lloyd George, fair enough. And it was really interesting. He was an absolutely magical character.
Yeah.
And fought for the working people's rights.
Yeah.
Very early on when it was not fashionable to do such a thing.
No.
And so, yeah, pay it a visit. Lloyd George Museum in, I'm going to just say, Criceth.
Yeah, I mean, the song refers to pension. He was the Chancellor when the Liberal government brought in pensions for the first time.
There we are.
Which was, 5 shillings a week. So, yeah, this song refers to some of his achievements. He was, shall we say, renowned for his other interests, as his wife would point out.
Oh, I see.
But, yeah, and of course the other fascinating thing about him was he spoke Welsh as his first language, but he was actually born in Manchester.
So he's Mancunian.
Absolutely, but he got over it and lived to be a fine.
Got over it.
Got over it, lived to be a fine Prime Minister, and especially a Chancellor. I think some of his achievements in the early Liberal government, early part of the 20th century.
So there we are. If you're on your state pension, I nearly said old age pension.
Absolutely right.
If you're on your state pension, you've got Lloyd George to thank for it.
Absolutely.
It's gone up a little bit. I think it's gone up a couple of bob since the
just
$5 shilling
a
days.
fraction. Yeah, just a fraction.
But probably not as much as people would like. Anyway, this is Lloyd George by the Puritans.
Skipton, 10 miles of Clocky Lane. If I could see him face to face, I'd thank him for his pain. 'Cause he took me out of the workhouse and he gave me life that's free. 5 shilling a week for cheating death, that's what Lloyd George gave me. Well, he gives me leet and firing and flour to bake me bread, and tea to mash with every meal, and supper until I'm dead. Well, I've nought to do but thank him and make a cross with pen. 5 shilling a week, I know, but that he's the best of men. 'Cause he took me out of the workhouse and he gave me life as free. 5 shilling a week for cheating death, that's what Lloyd George gives me. Well, I don't know much about politics, but I do love that Lord. He spends his money like a king when other folks is lord. And I know lots about fellas who were past their 70th year. Lloyd George, he addles brass for them to buy a sup of beer. 'Cause he took me out of the workhouse and he gave me life as free. 5 shilling a week for cheating death, that's what Lloyd George gives me. Well, if my old man were here today, he'd say that I spoke true. He never liked them liberal lot, and he always voted blue. Now Parson's wife, she tells me, soon we're going to fall. I hope she's right, I'll vote for him with all me heart and soul. 'Cause he took me out of the workhouse, and he gave me life that's free. 5 shilling a week for cheating death, that's what Lloyd George gives me. Well, I don't know where he comes from, often it's down Leeds way, but every night and morning for his long life I'll pray. 'Cause he took me out of the workhouse, and he gave me life that's free. 5 shilling a week for cheating death, that's what Lloyd George gave me.
There we are. That's the Lloyd George song. Well, Lloyd George is just called. Obviously famous for his pensions activities.
Yeah, pensions initially, and then of course he became Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Leading politician, and then remained an MP until his death in the 40s. And of course his daughter Meghan then became an MP, and so quite a legacy.
Yeah, he was still active around when Churchill was around, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they were not the best of friends, it could be said.
No, well, they were from opposite ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely
weren't they?
right. Yeah.
But I think they had to work with him because it was a coalition government during the war.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
So that's like it or lump it, as they say.
Yeah.
And he rode up, as they say, down under. This is an infamous song, but a very famous song, "Christmas in Australia."
Yeah.
I have to say, this still gets an airing every Christmas at the Woodman.
Yeah. Well, it came about because late in the 70s, we sort of decided that Christmas should be a bit more of an event.
Yeah.
So we started with a mummers play.
Oh, right, yes.
Again, Andy was into that sort of tradition. So we did a mummers play for a couple of years, which was fine. And then we decided to make it even more, well, hopefully more fun by having a pantomime. And it coincided with booking Cosmotheca for the first time. And also, the first time we had Cosmotheca, we had Bill Caddick too.
Ah.
So the first pantomime...
Is that Bill Caddick as well?
Bill Caddick as well.
Not Bill Caddick 2, as
No.
in the follow-up.
Yeah. So we had Dave and Al playing the Ugly Sisters.
Excellent.
And Bill Caddick playing the male lead.
Ah.
And that was the only time, I think, that was the first one I wrote. Dave and Al, I think it was the only time they were both in drag.
Oh.
Because after that, we got Al to play the strong male lead, and Dave continued. That Christmas, as we got closer, I realised we were going to need costumes for them, because they obviously they were busy on the road. They were quite big stars, even in those days. So I knew I had to provide them with costumes. And I remember being in Oxfam in Stourbridge, trying to find a dress that would fit Dave in particular. Was a big lad. And I remember trying on this orange dress at 5 o'clock in Stourbridge High Street.
Well, as you do.
And for some reason, people who had sort of intended to come in the shop turned away.
Really? I wonder why that is.
So anyway, this dress, I kept my jacket on and tried the dress on, and fitted, and then it looked lovely on Dave, I have to say. So that was the first. It coincided. So then the pantomime tradition continued from there, really.
It certainly did, yes.
A modicum of success.
Oh, it's looked forward to with great affection.
Yeah.
Can you remember what the first one was? Was it?
The first one was the ugly. What was the Ugly Sisters? Cinderella. Cinderella, wasn't it? Yeah, with the Ugly Sisters and
yes.
Was it Dandini?
Dandini.
Because we were still in Europe at the time, so you could do that. You could do Dandini as well. I don't suppose you could do that now, could you?
Well, I don't know. Why not?
Oh, I think you'd have to have just British characters now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, you could have.
Who would you have as Dan Needham?
Well, you could have Jacob Rees-Mogg as the ugly sister, couldn't you?
Oh,
There's
right.
plenty of those, plenty of ugly sisters.
There's a few ugly ones in the Houses
What
of
about
Parliament.
Pretty Patel as the witch?
No.
Oh, do you think
I think we better
leave this?
sway off that
Perhaps
subject.
we better leave this, shouldn't we? Yeah.
We better sway off
Yeah,
that subject
yes,
there.
okay,
yes,
yeah.
We will ask her next year, but I doubt whether she'll be
Yeah,
up to it.
but anyway, Christmas in Australia, yeah, that was. So we were persuaded. I can't believe this. But we were persuaded to record some Christmas songs, and we did this in a friend's flat in Wolverhampton. A chap I worked with, Eddie Brooks, and amazingly, people bought them. So they were released on cassette.
This is the Christmas cassette, I believe.
Christmas cassette, which sold in abundance. Well, I can't remember how many we did, because of course you had to copy them reel to reel.
You did.
It's quite a tedious process. So yeah, we did.
There's no cut and paste back in them days, not that way anyway.
It was all manual, as it were.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did. We used to do our Christmas show, as it were, at other venues if they would book us.
Yeah.
And we'd play at other clubs and other PTAs. Yeah, school things that were we did quite a few of those.
Yeah.
I remember doing a village hall in Wheaton Aston, and it chucked it down with snow. It was,
wow.
Because they all thought this was wonderful, magic. They all walked there. We had to drive home. Yeah, we did.
Fun to drive in, really, is it?
Not with the snow, especially when it's snowing when you started the evening, and you're thinking, your mate's here. So you think.
Oh, hello, Billy. So like Billy's in the next studio, so we're having a little wave.
Yeah, so we recorded. So we just gathered Christmas material from wherever we could, and we heard Roaring Jelly do this, and.
Is this another Roaring Jelly
Roaring
one?
Jelly song, yeah, Christmas in Australia.
Oh,
we then added verses. I think this is probably the original version, as it were.
Yeah.
But we then added verses as the years went on. Probably still got them somewhere, which are best left where they are. But there we are. So Christmas in Australia with Andy on lead vocal again, and Pete on his mighty Wurlitzer accordion.
Mighty Wurlitzer. Well, Pete on the Wurlitzer, not on the piano as he was famous for. And this is Christmas in Australia by the Puritans.
Christmas in Australia is Christmas in paradise. Christmas in Australia is basically bloody nice. Bruce going steady with Sheila, and she was going steady with Bruce. If you ain't got a Christmas suntan, you're a pommy and you ain't no use. It's 90 in the shade of Christmas, the sun's a blazing pew. So grab a tube of lager and a slice of cold kangaroo. Bruce is waxing his surfboard and waxing his Sheila too. It's a real Australian Christmas. Yahoo! Christmas in Australia is Christmas in paradise. Christmas in Australia is basically bloody nice. Bruce goes steady with Sheila and Sheila's goes steady with Bruce. If you ain't got a Christmas suntan, you're a pommy and you ain't no use. It was a lovely summery Christmas. We had a party down on the beach, sung Australian Christmas carols. You should have heard us screech. Our silent night was the first to frighten the lights I've heard only seldom of once in Royal Bruce's City and oh little town of Melbourne. Christmas in Australia is Christmas in paradise. Christmas in Australia is basically bloody nice. Bruce goes steady with Sheila and she was going steady with Bruce. If you ain't got a Christmas suntan, you're a poppy and you ain't no use. Well, Bruce and Sheila disappeared down by the Billabong. They were gone for hours. I thought something must be wrong. I went to take a look. Oh, Bruce got quite enraged. I said, whoops, I beg your pardon. I didn't know you was engaged. Christmas in Australia is Christmas in paradise. Christmas in Australia is basically bloody nice. Bruce goes steady with Sheila and she's going steady with Bruce. If you ain't got a Christmas suntan, you're a poppy and you ain't no use. One got paralytic, a drunken brawl developed from a friendly game of cricket. Rolf Harris turned up finally and distracted us from our combat by painting a lovely picture of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Wombat. Christmas in Australia is Christmas in paradise. Christmas in Australia is basically bloody nice. Bruce goes steady with Sheila and she goes steady with Bruce. If you ain't got a Christmas sometime, you're a buggy and you ain't no use.
Christmas in Australia, a wonderful track, still being played at the Woodman there. I'm sorry about that, Mick. I led you into a false sense of confusion there, I think.
Not a problem.
Now, he's got his cans off, ready. He's got his coat on, ready to go out the door, and the last voice link failed, as is our want. Never mind, we'll do it all again, eh?
Yeah, we never had this problem, you see, years ago when it was all candlelit, hand-pulled beer.
Oh, now that sounds like a more appetising way of doing things.
Hardly any electricity.
Hardly any.
Hardly any.
Well, you know, those times could be back again sooner than you think.
Well, exactly. Actually, there was one funny thing happened. The room back at the Woodman, at the pub, the room was extended, if you remember.
Yeah.
And we had a delay of a couple of months. I mean, we were naive to think it could be done during the summer break. Anyway, eventually it was done.
Yeah.
And we had a big band, the house band, who were very, very big.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, international band. And they were booked. And of course, we'd sold tickets in advance and big promotion. And the place was in a terrible state. You had builders in, I mean, literally till 5 o'clock. So I went round, persuaded a couple of my sons to come round with the various vacuum cleaners, mops, bucket and mops.
Wow.
And I said to this chap, they were just packing up to go, Friday night. And I said, so is the power okay? And he said, what do you mean power? I said, power as in lighting. He said, oh, I didn't think you needed electricity.
Right, okay.
So I said, well, hang on a minute, wait. So he has to call his mate. Hang on, mate. Come back and turn the power on.
Oh.
I thought, can you imagine the band turning up with a big PA rig?
Yeah.
New extended room, everybody's excited. Indoor toilets for the first time ever.
Indoor toilets. Luxury.
Soap, the works.
Soap, you were lucky.
And we nearly had no electricity.
Huh.
Yeah, we had the floor cleaned, the seats cleaned, and power as well. So we carried on.
So a disaster averted there, really, yeah. Well, I mean, you will be pleased to know that the Christmas in Australia, the last track we played there, is still going strong at the Woodman.
Very glad to hear it.
Yeah, I think it's Ian and Anne who keep that torch.
That's right.
burning.
They continue playing it, and then I'm sure that others will carry on the tradition.
Yeah. How long did you play? Did you run the Woodman?
Until Christmas '98.
Christmas '98. Yeah,
that was it. Yeah, we decided in the summer. Kate and I decided time was right to move on.
Yeah.
So I contacted all the regular singers, the residents, by letter, so that I didn't want to announce it. Didn't want to have a tearful midnight in the summer before the summer break.
Yeah.
So I explained what was happening. I said we're going to pack in at Christmas, and I want you to decide what you want to do. And then I had contact with them, obviously, but I left it to the group together to decide what to do. And obviously the rest is history. They decided to continue. Ian and Anne took the front seat, as it were, with the support from everybody else.
And then it was, who was on the door back in those days, though, when you started?
On the door, initially, Kate did it and Jane Wadham. And then we had some friends, John and Sue Garford, I worked with John.
Yeah.
And then Peter Deans, who had been a regular right from the early days. Pete could never remember whether he was there the second or the third night in 71.
Oh, I see.
And Les and Edna, who had been there for a long time. So they did it as a sort of a joint venture.
Yeah.
I never had to worry about it. They were always there.
Yeah.
7 o'clock, whenever we needed. and if a guest needed collecting, Pete was on hand. Sometimes I collected them.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one funny story I've not mentioned to you before, because Debbie asked me this some time ago. What was the funniest thing that happened? Many of you will remember Gaynor Butler had a shop in Stourbridge, Porpentine music.
Porpentine music,
right,
yeah.
where you could get strings and bits and pieces as well as instruments.
Yeah.
Well, on one occasion, I collected Martin Carthy from the station, simply because my lads were playing cricket at Starbridge Cricket Club. So I collected him. He was fine. Everything okay, Martin? Yeah. He said just one bit of a problem. His train had been delayed, so he didn't have time to go into Birmingham to get strings. So I said, oh, right. And I didn't tell him. I thought we'll divert via Gaynors in case it's open, because you never knew if Gaynor had a gig or something on a Friday night, she wouldn't open.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell him. So we drove down Brook Street. I looked up, saw the light was on, got out the car, checked the door, called Martin. So Martin comes in behind me. Gaynor's there doing something else, and looked up. Hi, Mick, I said, come some strings. So she said, oh, yeah, right. So there was a desk at the front. You lifted the lid to look at the string, by which time Martin was alongside me.
Yeah.
So Gaynor then looks round, sees Martin Carthy, thinks, no. Martin then picked out 3 or 4 sets of strings, left it, whatever the note was, appropriate, said thanks, and walked out. And Gaynor didn't speak.
Oh, she was starstruck.
She picked up the note and looked at me, and I said, yeah, see you again. Bye, Mick. And we walked out, and she didn't say another word. And the following morning, she rang me, and she said, was that Marty Carthy last night? So that was a great one, a great sort of
that's wonderful.
way of,
Black Country Extra. Black Country Extra.
You're listening to Black Country Extra.